Hi everybody. So I'm going to be taking you through hand applique in the next 3 days. So today we're going to talk about the tools for hand applique, some of the methods, thread. I love talking about thread, basting, how to transfer it onto your backing fabric, stabilizers, cutting tools. There's lots of cool little things that makes hand applique easier to do. And I found that as I get older and my hands get more arthritis in them, I've had to tweak some of the ways I do hand applique just to accommodate some of my challenges. And I was fortunate to take hand applique from a couple of really awesome ladies who I would consider masters in hand applique. And I've taken a little bit from each one of them and kind of created Linda's method of hand applique. So I'm going to just show you, this is the one course I taught. So this was the sample for the class. Now each block usually has some type of meaning to it. This is a vase with tulips in it. And we use a variety of methods to hand applique. And that's what we're going to be going over in the next 3 days. Okay, put that back. So let's talk about the types of hand applique. The one that I'm going to focus on the next 3 days is called prepared edge. There is a reverse applique that I've tried and it didn't work too well for me. Prepared edge worked fantastic for me. So that's where you take your applique piece, you fold in your scant 1/4 inch or your 1/8 of an inch, you prepare the edge, and then you just stitch it down. For me, that just resonated and I was very happy with my results. So with prepared edge, we're going to use 2 types of templates. I use that term a little loosely. And this is the pattern we're going to be doing. Now on this pattern, we have the heart, and then we have the little circle. The circle is going to be done on a template, and the heart's going to be done with freezer paper. So I'm going to use 2 methods of applique transfer. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the tools that we need for successful hand applique. You need marking tools because we may be marking the applique fabric, we may be marking the background fabric. With applique, typically your background is a large block and then you put the decoration on top of it. So background, these are the applique pieces. So the key to this is to make sure it's placed properly on the background fabric. And there are 2 different ways that I'm going to show you in the next couple of days to doing that. So we need to mark our applique fabric and our background. So I'm going to go over some of the tools that you may need. So one of the things, this was not around in 2011 when I started teaching. These are Frixion pens. You can mark your background fabric or mark your applique fabric, and then it irons off. I have never had a problem with the marking coming off. My good friend, she tested these, threw it in the freezer, and the mark did not come back. That's one of those wives' tales in the quilting world. I use my blue one most of the time. In fact, I always have a blue Frixion pen because you can never have enough. One of the important things with your Frixion pen, you need more than just a blue color. I would highly recommend the green. The green works really well, and you'll see that I've used green in some of my samples here. Pink is really good. So if I was using a darker fabric, so say a blue fabric for my background, obviously I don't want to use a blue pen. Ask me how I know that. You want to use a color that really shows against your background fabric. So it's always good to have colors of your Frixion pens. These are amazing. These are probably my favorite marking tool right now. Next, if I know it's going to be a temporary, I will use my water erasable markers. Now I use these for free motion quilting, but I also use these for my applique. And I can mark, I like it has a very fine point, just like the Frixion pens, they have a fine point as well. And to remove these, I just take a Q-tip with water and I run it along the line that I drew. I really do like these. Now, before Frixion pens came out, we all had fabric pencils. And I have these 3 ones from Soline. Now, they come in different colors, which is really important. This is almost a dark gray. This is a white, so that would be really good on a dark fabric, and a yellow. Right now in my pen, this is an old Soline. These are the new stock. I have green in it. These are typically ceramic leads, and they're very, very nice to use. They have an eraser at the top. As you can see, I've worn my eraser down. That's why they put an eraser there, so you can rub it out, right? They all have erasers on the top here to remove your marks. So depending on what you're working on, one of these 3 marking tools will work. So anybody who is a quilter usually has these 3 tools in their kit, or my go bag as I call it. Okay, let's go to the next one, needles. Okay, we have 10, 9, 10, 12. We have 2 packages of 9s. So these are the Clover applique needles. With an applique needle, you have a very small eye on it. And we'll talk about why we have that when I get to the thread. It has a very sharp tip because you need to pierce the fabric. These go, I've always used these before. These are my favorite ones. The Clover Golden Eye. And the eye is actually gold. So it's really easy to thread. Now, these were out front, and I thought, you know, I want to give these a try. So these are the black gold. And I actually have a little handout here from Clover about these black gold. These are all applique needles. They're sharps, but they're a premium brand. So I'm going to say it's kind of like the Mercedes brand, right? They go through very, very easy because it is black with a gold tip on it. They don't rust and they don't bend. I've been known to bend my applique needles because when you're doing a lot of applique, you can bend your needle. And I usually thread up a couple of my needles at a time if I'm doing one big color area. Now I bought a package of this today and I actually tried it and it just goes through like a hot knife through butter. I really, really love these needles. So those are the black gold needles by Clover. They are beautiful. So with needles, the higher the number, the finer the needle, the eye is, and the thinner the diameter of the needle. I bought an assortment today, just give it a try to see which size I like. I usually like the smallest needle that I can get away with, so I'm usually in the 12. Although, I have to buy a needle threader now. Don't you love getting old? These are beautiful, beautiful needles. So let's go to our next thing. And anybody who has stitched for a period of time knows that you have to have a thimble. Why? Because as you're pushing the needle through, you're using the tip of your middle finger. You'll end up finding, oh, I just left blood on my applique. And ask me how I know that. So these are a variety of thimbles we have here. This has the little metal tip It goes right on here, and it has an adhesive, it sticks there. So with the metal here, you have the butt end of the needle. Because you're going to be pushing here, and this will eventually, you'll end up having needle scars here. That's why you need to have something to cover the tip of your finger, especially if you're hand quilting, because you're going through 3 layers, you need to have something here. So this has the metal, so you push against that. And we even have refills for more adhesive. Now we have a variety of thimbles. Let's start with these ones. These have a flexible rubber. I wonder if that is silicone. So the nice thing about these ones, so you have the metal tip, so you can push the needle through. So in here, you're actually pushing with the tip of your finger, not the pad part of your finger. They actually have little holes in here, so you can figure out what size works for you. That was a large, my finger can't get through it. This is medium and small. So that's nice that I actually have something to try on. And with the little scalloped edge, it's nice too, because what can happen is that if you have something over your finger, it can get warm and your finger can actually sweat in there. So with the scalloped edge, you have some air going up. Now we also have leather ones. So the nice thing about this is that I can push with the tip or the pad here. You will find out where you tend to use your finger to push the needle, whether it's the tip, and this one would work really well that I just showed you from Clover. For using the pad of it, this one works quite well. Now this is a leather one, and actually my finger fits in quite nicely. Now we have these ones. This is a coin thimble. Now what this is we have a metal and it has little bumps in it. So the end of our needle, and I just lost a needle already, will actually go into one of those bumps and push it. Thimbles are really personal. You have to figure out which one works the best for you. Now we have these ones. This is a soft thimble. It frees your fingernail. So what happens is that, with the big one here, it'll actually go in, and this part of the thimble part is open. Actually, very much like this one, and this is one of my favorite thimbles. So it's actually on. My fingernail is actually on the top here, and I just basically have the protection on the pad of my finger. And that's what these ones, these are soft thimbles, freeze your fingernail, and it has a metal tip in it. The nimble thimble. So these are really good, so it's really important to have one. I have one like this that I really love. But in my go bag of my hand stitching, I use these thimbles. These ones. These are wonderful. It's just a little sticky thing. Sticks right there. Off you go. Protects your finger, because once you've been doing this for a couple of hours, you'll have an indent here and your finger's going to be really sore. You can actually peel these off, and I just put it on my background fabric. When you come back the next time, you can just stick it back on. These are wonderful. Those are my favorite, along with this one. Okay, let's talk about thread next. So I'm going to talk about my favorite thread first. Well, actually, it's all my favorite thread, because I picked it, my favorite thread today. This is the Mettler 60 weight. It's a silk finish to it. I love this stuff, and I've actually been collecting this probably about 12, 13 years now. Even before I started teaching here, not realizing it, that this is part of the Isocore family. So this is a 60 weight. You need to have a thinner thread when you're doing hand applique. You want it your stitches to actually go into the fabric. I'll bring that up there a little bit. So when I stitch this with the 60 weight Mettler, my stitches go right into my applique, so you can't even see them. And we'll talk about picking colors and that in a minute. So I have a collection of these 60 weights. I love these ones. Now, you know that I'm a huge Wonderfill fan. The Decobob, which is an 80 weight, I picked up the Invisifill first. So a Decobob. A Decobob is an 80 weight. So keep in mind, your standard piecing cotton thread is a 50 weight. Pearl cotton is an 8. So the lower the number, the fatter the thread is. You go up to 100, it's like silk. When I first started doing hand applique, you could get silk thread, and that was a real challenge to work with because it kept coming unthreaded. I couldn't thread it, you can't see it. Decobob is an 80 weight, and they have luscious colors as well. Now, Wonderfill is a Canadian company, and its headquarters is in Calgary, which is wonderful, right? I love Decobob. I even use Decobob for my bobbin thread as well. But I use this for hand. So if I don't have the color in my Mettler 60 weight, I go to my Decobob. And some of us have way too much thread, right? And if I don't have that color, then I go to the Invisifill, which is 100 weight. And I think I have every color of Invisifill. 100 weight, so you're going to use a very small eye on your needle, and you usually need to tie the thread on your needle so it doesn't constantly keep coming undone or unthreaded. So I always try to use my 60 weight thread to begin with. Some of us have a whole case full of it. When that doesn't work, then I go to an 80, and if I don't have the right color, I go to my 100 weight. I love thread. So when you're picking out thread for hand applique, you're always going to pick out the color of your applique, not of your background. Because if I had stitched this with a creamy white and off-white, you would see the stitches on the hard applique. That's how you pick it. Here are my two colors. You can see how old my Mettler is. It's called yellow. So I've matched that. See, it blends right in. You can't even see that. So I've used one color for this side. This one's not as old because it hasn't gone yellow. I'm talking about the spool. And that one blends in beautifully on that side. You can't even see the thread. Always match the color of your thread to your applique, not to your background. Okay, so we've talked about thread. Next thing, basting. So once I cut this out, which I'll talk about in a minute, I need to put it on my background. I need to temporarily put it on the background. Now I've tried a variety of methods. So let me grab this. So the first one I've tried many times is these are applique pins. They're beautiful. They're small little pins. And you would put them along here. So the challenge I found with pins, there are times when a pin is applicable. But when I'm doing stitching like this, my thread always got caught in the pin. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to try a fabric glue pen. And when we talk about doing the prepared edge, I'm going to talk more about a fabric glue pen then, right? So you could actually just put this in the back, and now I can just go ahead and stitch it. This is wonderful. Some of us buy caseloads of glue refills because we just never have enough glue. Careful with this, you must always keep the cap on. So it's like any other glue, if you have the cap off, it's going to dry out. I love this. So the one I have is just an older one. Blue. So this works really well. But then I heard about this product, Roxanne's Baste It Glue. Oh my goodness. So they've just come out with this bottle, I think, maybe last year or the year before. No, last year. We don't even want to remember last year, do we? I'm going to say maybe 2 years ago. This actually has two applicators. They have a very fine one on the top and then a whiter one on the bottom, which is absolutely brilliant. So with the Baste It Glue, so this is my bottle. This is how they used to come, right? They still come this way, right? It's water soluble and it dries clear, right? You put tap, 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 tap. And then you got to be careful, because what you don't want is when you use it, that it'll stick and it'll clog up the thing. I love this stuff. I use it for a lot of things. Sometimes the glue pen is what it's called for. You may need it. And I use the glue pen to do my prepared edge. But to put my applique on the background fabric, to baste it down, I use the Roxanne's. So transferring the design. A couple of ways of transferring the design. So first off, we have it on the pattern. Right? We need to get this onto, say, freezer paper or a template. Now we can do the old-fashioned, put it up to a window, put my freezer paper on there, and then transfer it. So very important, do not use a Sharpie. You want to use your marking pen. Ask me how I know that, because the black on the Sharpie can get onto the underside of your applique. And if it's a lighter color and you used a black Sharpie, you'll have black on your applique fabric. So that's where this pen comes in. Right? This is your fabric pencil. That's where this comes in. So I would transfer this onto my freezer paper, as I've actually done here. So I've used my green lead. I don't know if that shows. Does that show? Kind of, sort of, yeah. So I've just transferred it on. So yes, you can do the light up, or do what all good applicators have. A light box. Some of us have two of these. Actually, I had the old ones where they actually had the light bulb in. Then they came out with the LED ones, which are brilliant, because now it doesn't get hot and you can transfer anything. Anything. This is essential if you do collage, if you do any picture collages, if you do any type of applique. This is how you transfer your pattern on. And I'm going to show you how to do that tomorrow. Could you just use a pencil? No, because the graphite will come off onto your fabric. So if I used on here, so this is the right side, I've got the freezer paper on the top side, not the underside, that's key. If I had used a pencil here, I would have graphite marks on the top of my fabric. You can ask me how I know that. Then that's ruined this whole piece of fabric, because now I have black marks on my fabric. And this is going to be my stitching line. A light box, totally essential for any applicator. And like I said, the nice thing with an LED one, it doesn't get hot, unlike the old light boxes that we used to have. I prefer a light box. For me, doing hand applique, it's all about prepping it. I find it very, very calming to prepare my fabric, transfer it onto my freezer paper or my template paper, template plastic. All of that is part of the process, and I just love sitting at the table with a nice hot cup of coffee right now and transferring my designs. I feel like an artist. Okay, so There's also what we call the veil method. So I can use a window to transfer my pattern on. Okay. I can use a light box. And then there's one other method to actually place it on my background fabric. Let me see, here we go. So here I have traced my heart on there. So I have traces, but you know what? I traced it on to what's called a veil. There's no markings on my background fabric. I've traced it onto a veil. This is a veil method. This is my class that I developed, right? I actually have a veil, and the veil is just patternese. It's very lightweight, you can see through. So I'm keeping my background fabric clean. And I line up where my applique goes. I lift it up, I put my applique fabric down here, put the veil back down, and then I can line this up, Roxanne Basic glue, and then I stitch it. It's called the veil method. It is wonderful. So I've prepared one using the veil method here. We're going to give this a try and you'll see. So this is patternese that I have used. We use patternese when we transfer garment patterns over. And all you do is you baste along the top, up, down, and then you place it. And then you don't have to worry about getting any marks off your background fabric. So we've talked about this type of applique I'm going to teach you is called prepared edge. So we're actually going to prepare the turned edge. It's going to be all ready to go. Put it on our background, and then we're going to stitch. We've talked about marking, a variety of marking tools, depending on the fabric you use. And there is no right or wrong fabric in applique. Some people say, oh, don't use a batik because it's too hard to stitch through. I have done hundreds of hours of stitching through, hand stitching through batik. It's lovely. You pick what works for you. There's no quilt police here. We talked about the needles. The ones that I like are the new black ones, the black gold. We talked about thread, basting, transferring the design. So, for tomorrow, I do hope you join me tomorrow in this journey. So what we're going to be doing is cutting out. We're going to be cutting out our appliques, preparing the edge. And then on Thursday, we're actually going to be stitching. Now, one other thing I need to talk about, your background fabric must be stabilized. No different than machine embroidery. You must stabilize your background. I have found the best thing for hand applique or even hand embroidery, Presto Shear. This stuff is a woven stabilizer, and it becomes one with your background, and it stays in there. Your stitches will be beautiful in here. They're supported. This is the key to success, is the Presto Shear. Usually we usually have the woven and the non-woven one. I prefer the woven one because you have a woven fabric here. I've had a lot more experience with the woven one. So you want to put this on your background fabric. You always cut your background fabric out larger than your block size, because then you're going to trim it down. Very, very important. And if you have an opportunity to get some template plastic, and I'm going to show you how to use this for the circles, not the heart, because the heart's actually easy. It's the circle. I'm going to show you how to make a perfect circle with this. We're actually going to be cutting the circle out, and we're going to be pressing on it, hint, hint. So you need something that will be good with pressing on it. That's why this stuff is good, right? So with the heavyweight stabilizer, we can press on it, and it'll be just fine. And I think that's it for today. So, be safe, be kind, and be calm. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.